In 2010, I was working on a book about the domestic floral agriculture renaissance. I went to a conference in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and for Association of Specialty Flower Growers. There weren't a lot of people there, but by far the youngest people there were Gretel and Steve, and I was enchanted by them. I just loved them. I had so much fun talking about their vision for becoming flower farmers, and we became friends. A couple years later, I was in, Cincinnati for a lecture, and I figured out how to drive up there and visit them. I saw the farm. It was just the two buildings. We went out for Thai food, and I interviewed you for the podcast. My podcast is the original flower podcast, started in 2013. Gretel and Steve were among the first year of guests. So it's telling stories about flower farmers is something I've been doing for 15 years, and it was really a privilege when Abrams came to me and asked me to do a book about the lifestyle of flower farmers. And they wanted a prototype. They wanted me to create a sample chapter, and of course I had to do it about Gretel and Steve. So they said yes before anyone knew about this book, and were willing to spend time with me, updating me on their story. And the stories of people like Gretel and Steve fill the pages of this book. There's 29 North American flower farmers of all walks of life, all ages, all ethnic backgrounds, all family histories and origins of people who are new to flower farming, people who are corporate escapees, people who had flower farming as their side hustle, florists who are at the top of their game, but who realized they couldn't get access to the gorgeous specialty flowers that they wanted, so they started growing their own. So we have filled this book with those stories, but it's for people like me who are flower enthusiasts. I'll never be a flower farmer. I like to use the phrase gardening like flower farmer, and it's because I want to get my hands on those same beautiful crops that the pros are growing, those varieties that have long stems, are vigorous, are beautiful, healthy, vibrant colors that the floral design industry wants. And I realized yesterday, spending time with Gretel in Lysianthus houses, I realized that's what she is as a grower. She's growing Lysianthus that the floral designers want. They're the color palettes, they're the forms, the unique, ruffled petals, the doubles, all of those luxury specialty flowers that are hard to find unless you know a flower farmer. So anyway, the book was a delight to write, and when I was coming to Cultivate, we cooked up this party, so we have a signed copy for everyone who pre-ordered, and if you would like me to personalize your page, I will be happy to do that, and Gretel and Steve will too, but we had fun yesterday turning to page 126. They're right in the center of the book, where he says mural, and we are all happy to personalize the book for you afterwards. I'll be over at that table, but I'm just delighted that you are all here showing the enthusiasm and support for local flowers, because I feel like many times since starting the Slow Flowers movement, I've been a little lonely person pushing this boulder uphill by myself, and know there's a big community, and when this kind of crowd shows up, it's really affirming. So thanks for being here, and I'm just delighted that you're helping us celebrate the publication of this book.
Hi, I'm Jessica with American Tacky. We are a family-run breeder of flowers, and one of the things that you're seeing here are the beautiful Lysianthus that we sent to this grower for trial.
Oh my gosh. So are these out in the commercial marketplace, Jessica, or?
Some of these are, and some of them are not. So we like to give growers a nice mix of diverse crops to try, see what works, see what doesn't, and you only find that out when you actually have different heights and groups and flower sizes and shapes.
Well, and also then you take this feedback and share it with future buyers, right?
We do, yes.
Yeah.
So especially for the ones that are experimental, we're definitely doing data collection. One of my tools of the trade, got to know the sizes of the flower, the stem length, because we want to make sure that it works for you before we launch it.
So when you measure the flowers, at what stage are you measuring that that dimension?
I like to do a 3/4 open stage because you don't want it fully blown. Nobody's
Right.
going to use that.
Right. You want it at the stage that you would be selling it to a florist.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So show us one. Is there one here that you
Let's
can measure?
see.
Here, I'll hold your flip over.
Well, it's very warm in here, so these are like somewhere between these two. So this one's looking at like 7 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and I'll usually do an average.
Okay. Wow. I literally saw one yesterday, I think was 3 inches in diameter.
We have the large Corelli Segoy, which we only do centimeters, so I don't know, but well, look. Yep, over 9 centimeters is 3.5 inches. And your Corelli Segoys are bred to be big and like a ball gown, so lots of frilly petals.
I heard someone asking you about what you look for when you're optimum harvest. So you were clustering them.
That's
Could you
right.
just show us that again?
Yeah, so when I'm evaluating a variety, I want to make sure, and we also give this feedback to the breeder, we always know that our growers want top flowering. So that means that within a set range, you've got the flowers opening up in a uniform way, because if you have a flower down here that's useless, and then you either got to have the labor to pinch it out or wait, and so that's just not desirable. So we want top flowering, and then we want at least 2. Everyone harvests a little bit differently, but I like to harvest with 2 showing color and 1 coming open along the way.
So this is kind of a little bit past where
A
you would
little
harvest
past,
it then.
but yeah, because these are local flowers, this is still great and usable. It really, depends on your market and what your customers are looking for.
That's great. Anything else you want people to think about when they're oohing and eyeing over these?
Well, just try it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know until you try it. And Lysianthus has excellent vase life, and they're super durable plants. And yeah, they're kind of like the rose of the South.
They're the rose of the summer, you know.
The
In
rose
terms
of the summer. It is so hard to grow cut flower roses. And even if you've got like, you do a lot of bridal work and you've got a bride that wants roses, you can suggest doing like a pink or a white of Lysianthus to substitute, so it can be locally grown but rose-like.
I love it. That's great. Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. I mean, talk about a rose substitute. That is just stunning.
Well, if you wanted something that was big and bold and a focal point in your bouquet, you're going to want to look at Corelli Segoy. Segoy in Japanese, by the way, means superior and wow. And that's why the breeders were like, this is something special. And the reason it's special is I want you to take a look at particularly this one. You can't even see the center because there's so many petals.
Right.
So what you get with Segoy is an extra large flower and then lots of petals to make a very big ball gown, really fancy look to your
it's fabulous.
bouquet work.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And the buds, once it's cut, do the buds open or not? I don't think they do they?
Well, they do if you're at a certain maturity. So
Okay.
I could feel pretty certain that this one will start to, maybe this one, but then yeah, these I would question.
But they're part of the design. They add the texture
are.
and the detail.
They add a bit of airiness and height to your bouquet work, and so that's not like a flat bouquet. So they definitely are an architectural feature.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you so much.
All of our greenhouses are on a timer. We can set it to run at 5 o'clock in the morning every 2 days, every 3 days, every day. But for the most part, we just manually turn them on when we think they need water. That way we can, because I think it's important to give everything a good drink of water and then let it kind of dry out and start to like need water again versus constantly applying water. We are recovering over waters here, so it's been hard for us to water less. It's funny because in the field every time we have to water it's a pain in the butt and it's a headache and it's a lot of labor. But in the greenhouses we're really trying to dial in our watering and not overwater. And then last thing and then I'll stop. The Lizzies, we harvest them. When we harvest them, we don't use knives, we don't use snippers. All we do is reach down to the bottom and snap it. So that was an efficiency that we learned a couple years ago. Actually, by cutting them back after we had harvested them, we cut them back to prep them for the second flush. And we learned that we could just snap them. And so now we just snap our Lizzies, and it's probably cut our harvest down by half. And if you look at all the Lizzies, that's a long time. So,
Yeah.
So that's really been beneficial. We don't pinch our Liz. She asked if we pinch. What we'll do is we'll harvest, and then cut everything back so it's got like 3 leaf nodes above the soil, and that will do as a cutback for the second flush. Otherwise, we'll get more leggy flushes, second flush.
So the second flush ends up being a lot more singly stems, and that's why, and I'll show you when we get up to the barn, but that's why we sell them by the bloom count to florists instead of stem count. So in California and other places, they'll pinch them so that they get those single stems with 1 bloom because they sell them by a stem count. But for us, if it's one big stem that has 7 blooms on it, then we let the florist cut them apart and process them and deal with them how they want, because you still get as much like volume. But then that way, the second flush, they know they're still gonna get that same volume of blooms no matter the stem count. Rather than having separate grades of them, one of our mentors, they had like 3 different grades of Lizzie's, and they'd had lines on their table. If it's not that big, then it goes down to the next one. We just process them all, count the blooms. There's 20 blooms in a florist bunch, and like 10 to 12 in a grocery bunch. And that's just based on like pricing and stuff. But then that way, it might be 20 stems in the, you know, in the fall when it's the second flush, but it might only be 5 or something in the first flush. But it can be cut apart and used in that way too. So the business has really shifted. And now it's mostly florists. So I feel like a lot of it is, a lot of our new customers, because we do the season extension in the spring with ranunculus, or you know, we have this volume of Lizzie's or the volume of dahlias. I think that helps. Even we found something that we didn't expect when we started selling to florists was that other growers are some of our best customers. So other growers that are doing events maybe don't have the volume, or they don't grow like, you know, enough of the colors that they need to like kind of be the support for other growers. So it's been cool to see that part of the business grow. And as far as shipping goes, you know, a lot of it is kind of in the surrounding states, but our next biggest state is Montana that we ship to, and we have a really good customer, Floriography, in New Mexico. So they're like places where maybe their growers can't grow everything, or their season is really short, or it's too hot for them to grow dahlias or things like that, that we can kind of help be the support in that way.
And I think it's also the fact that, you know, we can grow the specialty crops that maybe some of the big farms in California aren't growing, and we can grow them at a scale that we can provide to a florist in New Mexico or Montana, where they know what variety is, they know how special that flower is, and they're using it with intention. I think that really helps us.
One exciting breeding series that's happening out there, and that's another Japanese word called sugoi. So we have Gretel sugoi, and sugoi means like superior and wow in Japanese. And the Gretel sugois that are in there right now, the reason they're superior and wow is they are an extra large flower type. So we're talking like 3.5 inches or centimeters, 9 centimeters plus for our centimeter folks, and in extra petals. So what that means is you can barely even see the center because there's so much of a ball gown frilly look. And the reason that's also important is, for me in the South, where it is even more horrendous than this hot weather, like it is oppressive. And Lisianthus does not like that. They will actually reduce their petal count when they're having that sort of stress over temperatures. But what if I started with a Gretel sugoi, which already inherently has more petals? I put it in a stressful situation. Even though I may not be getting its original intent, I'm still getting a pretty high quality bloom, field grown, tough conditions, and it's still great for the local market. And so this is where we work with the different attributes and situations to kind of create, you know, the best scenario for cut flower Lisianthus. Taki Seed is actually a breeding company, and we do cut flowers, we do pot and bedding, we do vegetables, and we're actually 185 years old. We are a Japanese breeding company, and of course one of our specialties is Lisianthus. And so my job is actually to take what the breeders are doing and find trial space for them so that I can get real live feedback back to the breeders so that they can really create what the growers need, what they want, what the retailers are looking for. And so it's this back and forth of information that is so crucial for this industry. And this is where Sunny Meadows comes into play. And so I'm actually in Athens, Georgia, so I handle a lot of trials on the East Coast. And that's what's exciting about my job, is I get to send something brand new out to the growers and ask them what they think. Take data. So one of my best tools is my tape measure, because we want to know that you're getting the stem length, the flower size, and speed to flower and number of blooms. And these are all the things that I measure. So I've got this whole book that I will be taking data later today, where I'll go out to the trials. I just arrived yesterday, and I will be evaluating them so that we can say, does this thing work? Yes, no, and then launch it or don't launch it. Now, some of the varieties out there are already commercial, because I already know that they are excellent. I sort of use those as controls, like I already know this one's amazing. So the experimental ones, I can then compare an already commercial one to, and then see, does this experimental one, is it better? Is it at least as good, or is it not even as good? So we should go back to the drawing board on it. You guys heard, like some of these blush colors, some of these more nuanced, this is where your local farmer plays a huge role, because they can work with that, and they can handle it, and they love it. And so we definitely try to make sure that our breeders understand that. Even though my breeders are in Japan and they're in the Netherlands, I am the conduit for like saying, hey, make this for me, so do it. But not only just flower color, but also being a grower is a hard job. And so when you've got disease pressure, that only makes it harder. And so any way that we can breed something that helps the grower is thumbs up. So better disease resistance, especially Fusarium. So as you guys mentioned, some of the varieties are showing that they are tougher. And so that's important, having Fusarium resistance. And also speed to flower, because I was mentioning earlier, someone who'd asked me some questions, the longer you leave a crop in the ground, the more chance that something's going to happen. And so we want you to get that harvest, get the stem length, get the quality of bloom, and then get it out of there, so that you can start fresh with something else that will make you money.
And I would say that's kind of what I'm wondering with these. This house has for sure been the biggest headache as far as Fusarium goes, and the fungus gnat larva. And I think that it's just because it's just been in the ground longer, and the roots are getting closer and closer to the Fusarium that's deep.
Yes, so that's a really good point. So I do trials not only in covered houses, but it's also a reality that some growers do not have covered spaces. And so especially in the southeast, I've got growers that do field Lisianthus production. And so we are testing for suitability for that. And my Japanese colleagues think I'm crazy, because in Japan you will only ever find Lisianthus covered and babied and taken very well care of. And so I work with the University of Georgia to do succession planting as well, so that we can find out, okay, well, if I plant in February and they are still coming due in June, what if I planted in March and still get due in June? You know, I've cut a month off of production because the weather's better. So we do lots of testing so that we can really hone in not only the correct and the best variety, but also the best growing conditions for your situation. So are there any specific questions? Because I wanted to keep it brief, so I didn't take over. But so if there are no, yeah, go ahead.
In other parts of the world, what are the colors that people are asking for?
So she asked, in other parts of the world, what are the colors that people are asking for? So I do want to teach you some Japanese. Sakura. Sakura means cherry blossom pink. In Japan, they're crazy for cherry blossom pink, Sakura. And then in China, it's going to be what Gretel mentioned, some of those pure, solid, bright colors. And so the other thing I actually want to mention is we have 4 different series. And what a series is, it's like when you have, so Arena, for example, it's a series. It's got smooth petals. Corelli, that's a series. It's got frilly petals. And Chroma, it's a smooth petaled one, but it's actually got smaller flowers, more rose-like. That's actually the Chroma. They use a lot in China because they're very rough with packaging of flowers. And so they actually like push their Lisianthus into boxes. And so our breeder made Chroma to be super durable for that sort of handling. And also, if you break one flower, like, who cares? You've got tons of other ones. But there's an application here, because what it means is it's a super tall stem, easily and quickly, is durable, and then yeah, when you lose a flower, you still have a saleable bunch of flowers. And so that's my work, is like, you know what, we made this chroma for the Chinese market, but what about local growers that can still benefit from those attributes?
We like sturdy flowers. And I will say, as far as sales go with Lisianthus, one thing that's really interesting to us is on the retail end. We used to do the farmers market, and Nate and I would do the Clintonville farmers market, and we would sell 15 buckets of Lisianthus easy on a Saturday. Everybody loved Lisianthus season. They love, what's nice about Lissies is they last a long time in a vase, so you can get 2 weeks out of a vase with them. So it was, when Lisianthus season started, that's what the flower that all the customers would buy. Well, when we stopped doing the farmers market and we opened up the farm stand, we can't sell Lissies in the farm stand very much anymore. And I don't know if it's that Nate and I would talk up Lisianthus, and really try and push it. And maybe that the farm stand customers aren't as aware of that, but I did find that interesting. So most of the Lissies will go into bouquets, to florists, and to our grocery stores.
It's actually cup shaped, and so as you can see here, it is our most rose-like, and even some have said it's sort of like a ranunculus-like, but this is called Cupid White, and there are other colors coming, but because of this cup shaped, you just get a totally different look and use. And I do have some florists that will even reflex the petals to really open up the bloom, and then use it in different ways in bouquet work too.
Like you would with a rose or whatever.
Yes, but this is Cupid White.
But that cup shape is really evident. I see what it does have a ranunculus.
Doesn't it? It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So this is the first one, in which you think it'll become a series?
This one I launched this year.
Okay.
But we just didn't have many people who knew about it yet, and that's half the battle. Even if I launch something that's kind of new and cool, you got to find out about it. And so we also will place stuff that's new and cool at growers so that they can start talking about it.
And she can offer that to her customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, that one.
Thank you, Jessica. That's cool.
So this is a viburnum judi is what it's called. It's another landscaping plant that we're using to cut apart and use in bouquets. I like it because it's very hardy, so it can be used out of water, which not a lot of foliage that we have that you can grow, like dusty or geraniums, can be used out of water. So for big installs, things like that, it's special. So I'm going to start the vase arrangement with just kind of creating my base here, and I like to use the shape of things so that it's giving you some height and using if things are curved. That's why I love Lisianthus, because it has all of the buds at the top that are fun shaped. The more that you crisscross the stems, the more of a grid that you're creating for yourself to hold other things. Should have put this on my Lazy Susan. Is that 9 bark? This is 9 bark, yes. This one is summer wine. So we planted a lot of this at the Pickerington farm. It has a very short sales window though. You have about 10 weeks to sell it. It starts to get black spot in the field, so there's a short window in which it's hardened off enough that the tips don't wilt to when it starts to get spotty in the field. So I think the natural inclination when you want something to look very wild is to have everything stick out really far, but you need to make sure that you tuck some things down in there so that you're filling kind of the different planes, filling the different holes. I don't always use thing in threes. I think that some people have that like design mentality, but sometimes I'll use two and kind of like put them together going out the side, as long as you're not creating like antenna if you're using two. But we're gonna start out with 3 dahlias here. Sometimes these back petals need pulled off. This dahlia is Salmon Runner. So we have about 100,000 dahlias planted out in the field, and the field is just starting to bloom. So dahlias are a huge part of our production, not only for the cut flowers, but also for the dahlia tubers that we sell online through the winter. And that's what helps keep our employees with hours over the winter. This is a hydrangea that's called Quick Fire. So it's starting to blush in the field, but we love these like lace style hydrangeas because they fill space, but they still allow you to kind of like tuck things into them. What we learned last year when we moved our 6 acres of woodies is that the reason why you want a shade structure on your hydrangeas is because the morning dew plus the sunlight is what burns them. So we did not, the goal was to put a shade structure over them, and we did not do that this year. So my goal is for them to pay for their own shade structure. So we had to cut everything back so hard that we didn't get a lot of production out of what got moved last year. So looking forward to cutting more of them, and also, you know, still working on figuring out the logistics of how to be in 4 different places as far as like planning harvest lists and like making sure, you know, the most useful, efficient time usage and labor usage. So making sure if they're going over there, like typically we would harvest to order, but with the hydrangeas and the 9 bark, we've had to kind of, and the stuff that's coming from the new place, change the mentality a little bit, where I like, you know, we'll have them get 30 bunches of something and then have that available in the cooler, rather than like harvesting it to order and sending somebody 20 minutes away to harvest like just a few bunches. So okay, other flowers that I have over here, these cosmos are called apricota. These Lizzies are one of the trial varieties, and I think that they are called peach ice. This is eucalyptus baby blue. There's, from the seed that we got, we found there's actually 2 different kinds of baby blue. One that is a little bit more upright, like, so we call this one spiral, and another one that's a little bit more loose, and like the leaves are like softer. So we have a little bit of both. So, you know, sometimes when something like that happens, then it's like confusing for the harvest team. We'll just call it something else. So that way, like, it's, you know, instead of them both being baby blue, this one's called spiral and the other one we call baby blue, because it was just too confusing to have 2 and have them like distinguish. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of this in here to build more of that base, but still give me the height. So part of my goal is to have like kind of like, instead of it being roundy moundy, having it be kind of like a ski slope, like the triangle being, what is that? A right triangle where it's going down and then there's something kind of coming across, like different places for you to catch the eye. And just building on that. And then, you know, our bouquets that we sell like in the retail, like they are somewhat designed, but I always like to still do this when you take it home, because then you can like build those different layers within the arrangement. Whenever I cut something, I try to cut down, this is just one of my pet peeves, is I hate seeing like butt ends. So I would always cut down like in the joint rather than like cutting here and leaving this. One of the tricks that I learned at a design workshop is to take some mud and like put it on the end so that you at least can't see like a white fresh cut. But I would prefer to just like have it be cut down in the, so like if for Lizzie's, you know, if there is like a broken tip or whatever, I would always go down into the like into the joint where it is to cut it off. So that's part of like what we're doing here in here. The barn crew is like getting things, I mean, we'll let florists do some of the processing, but we're also the last like line of defense before things go out the door as far as like what the product looks like. This is Cinnaglossum. They're Chinese forget-me-nots. We grow 3 different colors. Blue is the most common, but I love this rose one. There's also one that our friends at Three Porch Farm sell called Miss Marilyn. That's like a lavender one that has not really started blooming yet this year, so we haven't had much to use. But I've really been feeling this like citrus tone of like a pink peach yellow, so that's kind of what I was going for here. This is Rudbeckia triloba, so this is a perennial. It does spread. Some people say it's invasive. I think we cut it hard enough that it doesn't really do that for us. This Rudbeckia is called Gloriosa. It's like a fluffy double one. We always plant Rudbeckia in the fall and in the spring so that we have 2 different successions happening in the field, like overwinter them. These are marigolds here. This one is called Cocoa Gold. We do a ton of marigolds here, especially in the fall for like Dia de los Muertos and Diwali. So we are like connected with those communities here in Columbus. We'll always make an altar in the kitchen for Dia de los Muertos to kind of help honor their culture. So a lot of these I'll use in 3s to begin with and then kind of tuck in to fill space. One thing that I learned when I was doing wedding work was a trick that you can always like take a photo of the arrangement and then you can see like where the holes are. Basically like you're seeing it how other people are seeing it rather than like how you've been looking at it. Especially if like I would always keep in mind like where the arrangement is going. So if it is going like this one is one-sided, but I'm going to fill in the back because if it was viewed from all sides, you would want to make sure that all of that was filled in. If you were doing something for like a foyer, you could do like taller and one-sided if it's going to be like up against a wall or something. So that was part of like when I was meeting with people, like to try and always think about that, to utilize the like budget in the best way possible. Like I've learned for funeral work, people want to show that they're the most bereaved, so they want like the biggest, the biggest, tallest, fluffiest thing that they can get. Did you go to Floral Design School?
She asked if I went to Floral Design School. I did not. You know, I was always into art. I was actually told by my high school art teacher I would never make it in the art world because my stuff was too designy. So I think maybe that's just like what pushed me into the design world of just kind of like, well, I'll show you. Yeah. I think, you know, that's as like, yeah, rough as it was a big motivator for me. And I think with that, when we started the farm, you know, we were the like kind of at the beginning of like young people coming back to the land. Like Deborah said, we were like the only, I remember being the young folks at the conference being like, we need to make sure that this is like a viable thing for us to do. And we were basically told to keep our day jobs And so I think that is part of what like motivated Steve and I to like sort of show people that like it is possible, you know, not only for us to like make it for us, but to also you know, now employ 28 people and like provide a living for other people's families. Feels really good. I know I mentioned Dave Dowling before, but he always says, well, if Steve and Gretel did it, so could you. And in the beginning we were like, what does he mean by that? And then it's like, okay, I think what he means is, you know, we didn't go to school for this and like have learned as we go and found mentors, and that's why like farm tours have always been such an important thing for us, because like things that are like, you know, as simple as like how the hose is set up, or like what their like production board looks like, or just things that you can like take back to your farm. And so we always say like a piece of each of those farms like lives on in our farm. And that's why I also, all of the like farmers that have retired or gone out of business that we bought stuff at an auction, you know, it's like we get to kind of carry on like the things that they've built, and we hope that somebody will do that for us. I mean, you saw Leave on here, but before him, you know, the plan was not to have kids, and just because we have a kid doesn't mean that he will want to farm. So thinking about like, you know, we want this farm to exist after us. Here's another like, okay, so this Lizzie was harvested like this. I would cut it here, and that way you can use this piece and use this piece. But yeah, we've always thought about, you know, we've seen farmers retire and kind of have to like sell everything in order to retire, because farmers are asset rich and cash poor. And so thinking about that now, so that the farm can be like set up for maybe at some point whoever the next succession is, or like having it be employee owned or whatever, that just so that Sunny Meadows can continue to exist after us is the goal. So I'm just like filling the holes as I go. I started out with the biggest, fluffiest things like the hydrangeas and the dahlias. When it comes to sunflower buckets, those are the heaviest thing that we grow, and the team can really cram jam them in there. So we say to kind of approach the bucket like sumo wrestler style, like linebacker, where you really like go down and use your legs. Because that's one thing, you know, we're always thinking about how hard we are on our bodies as farmers, and like what we can do differently to have efficient systems. And that's part of why this barn is really important, because that means things can go on carts, which have wheels, and be moved around on the concrete, and not have to be lifting all the buckets all the time. Although we're still lifting the buckets to put them onto the carts. It's that's why I say Mother's Day week is like spring conditioning and the Super Bowl at the same time, because like your body is not used to, like, you know, you're used to winter tasks, and building up those muscles, like, and but it's also full volume at that point. Okay, so how do you know when you're done? When you can't fit anything else in the vase. So we're just gonna keep going here. Got a little bit more space. So this would be something I would say that could be like on the guest book table or on a dining room table. It would be a little tall if it was sitting at a, like, as a centerpiece, you know, for people to be able to see across. We would try to do something that was like a little either low or high. That's why you see kind of the like 4-inch cubes, or like I call them marshmallows on a candlestick, because they're just like the big fluffy poofs like on a or like we used to have antique like footed bowls that we would put frogs in and use. yeah, we did weddings for many years. The first year we started with our own wedding and did one other wedding, and that girl worked at a nail salon, and I got so many referrals from her over the years, probably because I did not charge her enough. Yeah, we worked. I love doing the big like install work and like the problem solving day of. In 2019, I got Lyme disease, and my farm manager took over the like wedding business from me. And when she decided to leave, I was like, then I think you need to stop meeting with brides, because I don't know if I'm ready to like reabsorb those duties. And I'm told that we did that because now we have leave on, and I would not want to be doing a Saturday night midnight tear down right now. But doing weddings was definitely, you know, what helped the farm make money to get us started, and was something I could order stuff in and do like in the winter time. I used to substitute teach in the winters between farm seasons before we did all of the season extension. Alright, let me see on the front here. Okay, this 9 mark is sticking out the middle, so I am going to add another. Pull this off to the side. Just so that it's not sticking right out the center. And I do, you know, since we sell so much to florists, I do like feel fulfilled by seeing my flowers and their designs too. That's what's cool about with social media, being tagged and seeing like the beauty that they've created with the stuff that we've grown. All right, running out of space. I do want to put one more of these dahlias in here. Right now, the dahlias, we don't pinch them in the field just because we have so many and we don't have time. So sometimes the first cuts are kind of tree trunks, which make them a little bit harder to use in these arrangements. But they'll have the only way you get long stems with dahlias is to cut long stems from the beginning. So it feels like you're cutting deep into the plant and maybe doing more than what you should, but it ultimately is better to have long, strong stems in the end. Alrighty. I think it's official.